What's up? How's
Hey,
everyone doing?
good.
Welcome to the live stream. I'm being joined by a couple really cool VR, XR, Metaverse type people. And so today's topic, we're just going to kind of talk about the Metaverse, XR, how to get into this actual industry, and if you're interested in changing your career in 2022, where you're just getting tired of what you are doing, or want to learn a new skill, or have some New Year's resolution or whatever, then this is the live stream for you, because we're going to talk about all that. So if Kachina and DJ, if you guys want to introduce yourselves, and we can jump into it.
Sure.
Kachina, you want to start?
Of course. Thank you so much. Justin, thanks for having us. So I'm here with DJ as well, but I'm Kachina. I work at XR Terra and also work at a couple of universities in research for the Metaverse and the XR world. But for XR Terra, I'm VP of Product, and we're working on getting education out for the XR environment, really empowering people to get into work in XR and just see how they can transition their current careers set and current interests over to that space. So DJ, I'll hand it off to you.
Great. So I'm DJ Smith. Thank you again, Justin, for having us here today. I am pretty deep in the VR space since about 2012. So I got into the industry by running a community through the meetup system. It's called the NYVR Meetup. That meetup is the second largest VR meetup in the world behind Silicon Valley's. Unfortunately, we haven't been meeting due to the state of the world, but I really want to get back to in-person events soon. And then in 2016, I transferred out of my original profession and co-founded the Glimpse Group. Glimpse is a holding company or parent company based in New York City that focuses on XR solutions across the board. And we recently went publicly traded. So we are on NASDAQ, which was super cool for the whole organization.
That was really exciting. And Samantha jumped in. Hey, how are you doing?
Hi, sorry for
you're good.
coming a little late. So we're doing intros, right? So
yeah.
I'm Sam Wolf. I have been in the AR VR industry for a little over 4 years. I started out going to DJ's meetup. And sort of ever since I've written a book, co-authored a book all about AR and VR. I teach as an adjunct at NYU. I created a course called The Business of AR and VR, and another one around the marketing of emerging tech. And hopefully I have an idea for a third. Hopefully another one will come soon. And I like to sort of introduce people, brands, companies to everything to do with these technologies, because they're fun. Sometimes it takes a little while to understand what they are and understand what they can do for you. But after you get that, then you just sort of, your mind is a bit blown.
I think that's like one of the biggest things. Like, people don't really realize how much potential all of this like technology has. Like, to the point where I totally believe that like TVs are going to be gone. Like, nobody's going to have TVs anymore.
I was in the TV industry for quite a long time, so I don't believe TVs are going to be gone necessarily, because I will just watch and watch and watch, regardless of platform. But I do think it is a bit of this sort of strange experience that you have when you learn about these technologies, that you slowly start to realize it's going to shift everything. And so if you tell somebody right away, guess what, this is going to change your whole world, they'll be like, yeah, right. And so that's what you have to like build up to it, so that they realize it will change everything.
Mhm.
And so you have to sort of hint to it of, a little over here, a little bit over there, and then they start going. I've said to companies or people, like, you get the win when they go, when they start thinking about what's possible.
Wait a minute.
It's not like a big, like, people aren't going to be, cheering and, well, maybe I will. I'll jump up and down with excitement, but everybody else will just, you get the, And then they start saying, have you ever thought, huh. Like usually if they can't even finish the sentence, it means that they're a little overwhelmed by like how exciting this stuff can be.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, Sam. I think that's a bigger conversation about hardware because you can still have that passive TV experience if we're wearing those glasses. You can have the biggest screen you want.
Absolutely. No, I mean, that was one of those things where, especially when Oculus was first coming out, when they said what were the most popular things that people were doing, and people were putting on the headset and watching television and watching movies. And I think that that's a little bit like if you look throughout history at the different kinds of media that are out there, it's almost like once you get a new medium, you start going, oh, can I do what I did on the last one? Like, oh, if I could do what I do on the last one, then at least it has that amount of value, and then it sort of builds from there.
Yeah, I think television and movies is an art form, just like books are an art form, and people still love to sit down and read books. And I think still people will enjoy going to movies, but VR will find a new medium, and we're still finding our way into what is the right art form within that medium.
Yeah, I mean, that's what when I first tried, I mean, we haven't heard those kinds of stories in a little while, but I tried a 360 video, not even sixed off, not even whatever, and I was like, wait a second, this is sort of what I do on my own when I'm in a TV, like, and I'm saying when I'm in a TV show, I'm already changing those kinds of words, but I'm watching and I'm like seeing what's going on and I'm getting to know all the characters and I'm reading about who wrote stuff and whatever. So I feel immersed in just a flat screen. And then when I sort of put on a headset, I went, wait, this is really comfortable for me because this is what I already do. And I need to find people who do this because I'm impressed and amazed or whatever. And then, as I said, I just kept showing up at all the meetups and I kept showing up and I kept learning and I kept asking and I kept learning and I kept asking and kept networking. And I still do.
Yeah, there you go.
You
And that's
did.
what I want to get into in this live stream is, and also this is live, everyone. So in the chat, we have the ability to bring you up
Hi,
on
Jordan.
screen and answer questions and whatnot. So hello, everybody who's jumping in here. We do want to get in and ask some live Q&A questions and whatnot. So if you have questions, drop them in the chat. We can all see the chat. And so, yeah, I kind of want to get into like, how does... Well, first, let's take a step back and say, what is the metaverse? Let's kind of like try to nail that down a little bit. And then we can figure out how to get into the metaverse as a career, like if that's something I want to do full time. And so I know metaverse is kind of this vague, like, it's almost just like a catchword or like, like a marketing lingo nowadays. And so like, what does the metaverse means? Like when someone says that, what does that, draw up in your head as what you think it is?
Well, I was, when we were sort of talking a little bit before, I like to define things for people who are sort of new to emerging technologies. And so I wrote a piece that I put up a couple days ago on LinkedIn just about what is the metaverse, and tried to put together all these different descriptions and the history and just sort of put it all together into one thing. I mean, for me, the way I like to think of it is that there's just so many emerging technologies that are maturing right now beyond AR and VR, sort of AI machine learning, and then now there's 5G and you have haptics and so they're all maturing at the same time. And I do like to think it's like somebody sat down and went, what if we put them all together? And how could we all meet if we put them all together? And then out, is birth the metaverse. Now it's more complicated than that, but it's sort of this idea that if you can digitize everything and then interact with everything in a way that's sort of almost like a new dimension, that is effectively what the metaverse is. But I mean, I purposely put in my little piece, like the people, places, and things. It's like real people, places, and things that are digitized, and then pretend people, places, and things. Digital people, places, things that they're all together. That's sort of how I like to think of it. But ultimately, at least for now, the value and the benefits are in those individual technologies right now. And then as they start merging together, which they already have, conversational AI being, a key example of how it's done, then we're going to start going, oh, if we combine this one, and this one, look at this other important kind of role that these technologies can play in our lives.
Yeah, I think it's been aptly described previously, and this may be kind of a lame way of describing it, but it is the Web 2.0. It's another platform for us to, like Samantha was saying, put together all of these bits of technology and make them accessible, make them usable, and make them common in our everyday lives. And we're not there yet where it's common in our everyday lives, but being in the industry, you start to see how many other industries are picking this up as a form of, reducing cost, reducing time on items. There have been plenty of studies out now that, I mean, we've finally gotten to the point where there are studies in VR and what people are actually doing with it. But there are a few studies out where you can actually see how VR is affecting industry and how it's affecting cost and how it's affecting onboarding processes for employers and industries across the board. I mean, we've seen a lot of it in like the mechanical engineering, AEC communities. It's definitely been something that's used in the kind of realm of Hollywood and film production and video production, lighting production, basically everything entertainment. It's kind of been floating around in that field for a while, but you are starting to see that being pulled into some more of like the engineering fields, the product fields, and seeing that used regularly. And there's a comment in the chat so far about ideas between NFTs and VR technology. It is possible. We could do it now if we wanted to. NFTs should absolutely be featured with VR and in the metaverse. The idea of virtual payment seems like it would go perfectly with virtual environments.
Well, have you seen that Ralph Lauren is starting to put their stores inside of, I think it's Roblox?
Inside of robots?
Yeah, hold on. Let me try to find this. So it's a.
Well, today they said also, like, Paris Hilton is setting up something in Roblox. Not that everybody follows Paris Hilton still, but basically everybody is trying to figure out and understand the different economies and the different potential. And when it comes to sort of NFTs and blockchain and cryptocurrency and all that, you can look at different platforms like something like a Decentraland, and it is effectively a virtual world where people are buying plots of land and using it. I think that the one thing about this sort of future metaverse is that the idea that there wouldn't be these walled gardens, right? It wouldn't be like, I'm going to go over to this part or this part and have them be not connected. Like, the idea is that they would be connected. And DJ, I'm going to keep on talking. You know me well enough. I don't have a problem filling up my 2.5 hour class. So go.
So I think the metaverse definition, like metaverse, the term is being used way too much. My view of it is like Gina had mentioned, just it's the internet 2.0, right? It's all of these worlds that will have a common connection point, which right now we're not there yet, but I think it will get there. And then the NFT side of things, that for me is the next progression of what I've been watching my son play Fortnite. And, when I was a kid, I wanted to buy, Michael Jordan sneakers. He wants to buy skins in Fortnite. And what NFTs will allow is that those skins will, in the metaverse, translate from one world to the next world. So that's kind of my simplification of both of those topics.
Well, there is like the whole concept of Web3, which is basically part and parcel of this entire metaverse
A blockchain.
concept. Yes.
That's right.
And so that sort of distributed kind of web experience, which is you think about all of the data that's going to be collected when we're all wearing our augmented reality glasses and have our many wearables. We can't support all that data real time at the same time. Although probably somebody from Verizon would disagree, but that's okay. Like theoretically, it's not possible yet. But yeah, no, I mean, this is such an exciting period, and I think that since so many of us, I will say, maybe not my students at NYU, lived through the start of the internet and mobile phones, and sort of saw that shift in behavior, that we're like, oh, it's happening again. Which really, I don't think there's ever been a time where it's like two of these shifts have happened in like one person's lifetime. So it's just really, really exciting time to be in emerging tech.
Yeah, and this holiday season with the amount of Quest 2s that have sold, like it's just crazy being in the social platforms since Christmas. It's like I can actually win in population 1 again because there's so many new people playing. I'm good for like a couple of weeks and then I got to jump back out.
That's probably my favorite game still at the moment. If you have not tried Population 1, give it a shot. It's quite fun.
Yeah, it really is amazing.
Sam, it's interesting that you mentioned, the switch over to mobile devices for people in our generation and the kids just watching how they adapt to it. And that, I guess, like collection of data and history repeating itself, essentially. It all comes down to like a mobile storage issue. Like that's all it comes down to is data collection and mobile storage. So it's going to be interesting to see how the application of things like machine learning and then like large server spaces kind of play a role in this. And also just now that it's become so obvious to people what's being collected, why it's being collected, it's going to be interesting to see how government catches up to this, how policies shift.
Right. I mean, there's going to be so many mistakes along the way. I mean, I think that's like,
hey, we're moving
assured mistakes along the way. And that's why, I mean, I really do believe that you can have a certain amount of innovation happening while you go, this might be the bad impact at the same time, and have that conversation pretty openly, as opposed to saying it's going to change the world and it's only going to be for good and everybody believe us and have faith in us and sign your life away on this 30-page document. Like, I think that it's sort of like, wait a second, we're going to have so much personal data, and people are going to try to hack it because it's personal data. What do we do about that now versus later? What do we do about the fact that we're going to have scans of our faces? I mean, I got that done and then had to like sign a waiver, and I was like, do you own my face now because I've signed a vol cap?
That's kind of wild.
You're a public figure. I don't think they can.
No, I don't know. Public. I mean, public within public within this size of a community. But I do think that was sort of a little frightening. And that's when you get into all those old, like sort of, I call it old Black Mirror episodes where it's like, who owns what? I mean, I think for me, if I were in the legal profession, you could, like, this is the time to get in. Wow.
Oh, gosh,
like,
I didn't even think about getting into the metaverse in a legal sense.
Oh yeah,
Weird.
from a legal sense, from a policy sense, from whatever, like they're
real estate, digital real estate, brokers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think that was one of the things that sort of opened the mind of my students, especially last year, was it was really fun to see in the business of AR and VR, to see the students who literally had say augmented reality, and they'd be like, "What?" And then it'd be like, Snapchat with the face filters, and they're like, "Yes, that I know."
It's like
Go
I've
from
used
that
that.
to the end of the semester being able to basically talk as if they were a thought leader in their particular area that they had studied. I mean, that's where I think some of the opportunity is that it hasn't. Okay, I know people will argue it has been around for a very long time. Thank you, Air Force. Thank you, whatever. But in terms of being on the edge of sort of potential mainstream adoption, it hasn't been that long. So you actually have the time and ability to catch up if you study and study hard enough. I mean, I went from not knowing anything like 4.5 years ago to teaching a course at NYU, writing books, all this sort of stuff. Now, granted, I spent all my time studying that. So maybe it took a little bit longer, but I do think for those of you who don't read articles about AR and VR all day long, but I think it's just such a fun time that if you take some classes, if Justin teaches you how to make something, you could make something that nobody has ever made before, right? Whereas
Mhm.
if you do like a YouTube video, that'd be like, oh, well, there are how many unboxing videos that exist? Like you could be the
Yeah.
first person who does the equivalent of digital unboxing to be like, wow, didn't even think that we could do this in VR and AR. I mean, that's what the opportunity really is now, which is
It
Mhm.
is
really
Yeah,
fun.
great that you can put your hands around the industry still, kind of, but it is getting tough. With things like side quests where there's new experiences every day. Which if anybody has not seen side quests, go check out side quests. It's really a great platform where indie developers get to kind of post their progress or games that are not finished. But it's really important to consume as much VR content as you can to really understand what
Yeah.
is happening in the space.
Well, that's what when you sometimes I will ask people, and this is one of my favorite sort of slightly mean question to ask of if they're starting in the business or they're starting a new company, I'll be like, who are your competitors? And a lot of times people go, and switch the conversation. And so that's the one thing is that yes, there are all these opportunities, but you also need to understand that there are other people who've realized this opportunity is happening,
Mhm.
and you need to look at them as well. And don't think that you literally are the first person. You have to prove that you're the first person. And when you said, DJ, how it's harder to get your sort of mind around all this, I will say that for 4 to 5 years ago, there'd be like an article about AR and VR maybe a few times a week, like out there in the world. And then it got to the point when I was posting in the group that I used to manage that it would be like it felt like it was like 4 times an hour at one point. So you just gotta jump in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot out there about like equitable platforms and the ability to test out your ideas. And SideQuest is a really good one right now because a lot of people can't get, a game in the Oculus store. They're pretty tight on the regulations there. I mean, if you've ever tried to develop for even the Apple store, there's like a whole process that you have to go through. Google used to be a little bit more flexible, but they've kind of cracked down on their store as well. But yeah, I mean, you've got a really good point there, especially when it comes to like prototyping and pitching a product and just getting an idea out there. I mean, that's what we have our students doing right now at XR We have them essentially creating their prototypes, getting their ideas down into a format that's testable, and being able to publish that to an open platform that people can test out. They can try to get feedback. I mean, there are so many ways you can get started in this field and get like just understand if it's something that you want to continue with
So
or if
let's
you have a
say
viable product.
that I'm like brand new at this whole space, and I like am either a developer or a designer. Like I'm more of the artsy side or more of the coding side, and I'm just finding out about this like XR, VR, metaverse kind of thing. What would be like I don't want to say fastest way, but the best way to like get into this kind of thing and say, okay, well, how do I get enough skills to potentially get a job via a job interview or make my own game to sell or something like that?
So I have a 4 bullet point recipe.
Okay.
Let me start. I like breaking it down to as simple as possible. So one, you got to figure out what you're most passionate about, and you can leverage your prior skill sets. So say you've been in construction for 20 years, you want to leverage that knowledge, that Rolodex, etc., and transition it and look at opportunities within the immersive space that can add value to it. But you also need to identify the things that you're passionate about, because if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to be successful. Two is you got to start experiencing as much content as you possibly can. One of the old sayings, I think, is you have to read a lot of books in order to become an author. And the same thing is with immersive technology. You have to experience as much as you possibly can. The third one is join the community, which is kind of what we were just talking about. There's so many resources online out there. In my path, I created the community, which I think is even a better way. But at minimum, you can join the community. But even starting a smaller group in your hometown or in your university or in your school, it worked for me, and I'm sure it'll work for other people. But resources like LinkedIn, the Meetup platform in general, all of the social worlds that are out there, Old Space, Roblox, there's like these thriving communities that hold their own meetups on specific topics. I'm still a Reddit junkie, so I kind of don't spend a ton of time reading articles, because I find like a lot of the articles kind of repeat themselves. But I really enjoy like digging one scratch deeper to the forums, understanding what are the games that are working, what are the problems people are having. So really kind of digging a little bit deeper than the normal folks. And then YouTube is an amazing platform.
That's where I found my community.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
where I got my start. First person
Yep.
games and trying to turn it into VR.
Yeah.
No,
So,
I mean, I had the Facebook one too.
That's right. The Facebook
Mhm.
platform. And then the fourth bullet point, and I'll be quiet, is you have to start creating whatever it is. I think, fortunately, the industry is getting to a point where we need these other skill sets. So we need QA, we need support, we need marketing, we need sales, we need all of these things. But I think a wonderful first step is, roll up your sleeves and start creating stuff.
I mean, I think that's related to just, emerging tech in general, is that if you think of how am I going to help the community first, or what can I do to support the community, after you start like understanding some of the basic terms, then you're probably headed in the right direction. I mean, I think I had a Facebook group for a while. It just got so overwhelming that I was like, I need to focus on my class now. But all I was doing was like posting articles and reposting articles that I was like, this would be valuable if you were in marketing, advertising, communications, and there's not really a place that you can go. And I thought that if it was just going to be me and just going to be my content repository, that would be fine. There ended up being, I think it topped out when I was there, it's like 3,300 people that also thought it was interesting and helpful. But that's sort of what I try to do when I write these things. There was somebody in the chat who said, like, I wish that there was some kind of presentation. Like, go to my LinkedIn and there's probably like, what is VR? What is AR? I just put, what is Metaverse? Like, I'm really trying to get a lot of people over that sort of initial hump of understanding broadly within the community. But then also when I work with different companies, it's about like, oh, they have their particular company that people don't understand what they're doing or the technology they're doing, and they need to get people to understand why it is so cool and amazing for whatever target that they want. But it's like passion drives so much in the industry, and as long as you understand some of the basics and you explain why you think that particular company or that particular technology or that particular person is absolutely the best and you've done your research, then you're set in the right direction. If you go in sort of assuming you know everything, people aren't going to believe you
Hmm.
um, right away. But if you have that passion and knowledge, then you're going to be really really well said. And I mean, if you're like, how do you have proof? I have many students that have ended up either in jobs or internships after one class.
Yeah,
So
passion's definitely important because I mean, it's moving fast. You need the energy, and passion is kind of what fuels
I've
it
had
at
to
that point.
relearn how to set up VR
Yep.
like at least 7 times in
Yeah.
Unity.
There's a lot of relearning. I mean, it's not just the world that's moving fast, it's the platforms that are updating and adapting to the needs of the industries. So passion is a must. DJ, your list is perfect, honestly. Like, you've got passion for your drive, your energy. You may not always know your exact direction, but this community is still open. It's still exploring what the idea of the metaverse is, how you utilize AR and VR. So there's some flexibility there, but come with the skill set you were already passionate about, because that's really where you're going to get your start. And start with that skill set and explore some things maybe you've like kept on your mind the past couple of years. You've had like a spark of inspiration and you're like, oh, this would look really cool in AR VR, but I don't even know if it's worth doing. Getting experience is important, and you can get that from a community. I mean, I have 7 years with YouTube and I'm pretty good at Unity at this point, but it did take a lot to build that with the videos that were out there. At the beginning, there wasn't a way to set things up. I mean, you were working with the Steam toolkit. There was some documentation, some instruction, but to really get the level of interaction you were going for, it took a lot of creativity going into it. And you got a lot from talking to people and just thinking through how you would set something up, as opposed to getting the answer of how exactly you set it up. And then, I mean, having your previous experience. I know, Justin, you had mentioned, what does this look like on a resume? Your previous experience always helps on that resume, but adding in something like being proficient with Unity for design or development. Prototyping is a huge one. Understanding and learning how to prototype is going to get you through problem solving a lot quicker than trying to become very proficient at, just the lighting in a scene, just the design of a scene, just the development. Like, you need to have that level of kind of rapid prototype to get through ideas and explain your thinking on how you broke that process down. And that's kind of where we started with XR Terra too. It was a knowledge and an acknowledgement of the fact that, we can do this through YouTube. We can do this through reading documentation, but it just takes so long and you don't get plugged into that community. So we are trying to establish a community. We're trying to establish a group of people who can support each other, a group of people who can help assist with the ability to prototype your ideas. So it's not just like, we're not just teaching you this is how you add things to a scene in Unity. We're teaching you how to get from start to finish with a full prototype of your idea.
Well, that's how you build up your resume, is you have lots of things. Like, I would much rather, if I was hiring someone to be a developer, say get a link to their GitHub where they have 5-10 fleshed out projects that are like all different prototypes. I'm like, oh, this person knows their stuff, like that kind of thing. That's like much more significant to me than a oh, well, they got a bachelor's in software engineering, or they worked here for like a year or two. Like, experience is good, but like, I want to see what you made, and I want to see like your skills and your abilities. And if you have a like GitHub repo or a YouTube channel, like, I didn't start posting, like, this channel is still like less than a year old, like starting like last January. And I just like wanted to kind of post, like, as I was learning things, I would just post, this is what I learned. And then like, people seem to be interested in that kind of thing. And now, like, if someone were to like, hire me for a teaching job, for instance, they know what my teaching style is and how I go about that kind of thing. So even if you start a YouTube channel documenting your development process of like, this is how I made the game, these are the issues I ran into, that is much more valuable than your one-page resume of like, oh, I've worked in
Yeah.
these places. It's like, I want to see your mindset and how you process things, that
Coming
kind of stuff.
from the design world, like portfolio is just ingrained. It's the thing that you've had to present at all stages of your career and education. So I take that for granted very often. I think just that thing being established in my mindset. But if you're not used to developing a portfolio, it can feel cumbersome. It can feel like a wall in front of you. And that's where just getting into it and getting some things done, and like Justin's saying, documenting your process and your ideas. It doesn't have to be perfectly formatted. Make it messy. Write it down. Take notes, look at them later, and you can restructure it. But just getting into it instead of staring at the wall of the portfolio that you imagine in front of you is going to be much better for your process.
I mean, I've gotten to know a lot of people who are super, super creative in the space. I am creative when it comes to like how to position things, but I am not a creator. All of you here are developers, and I am the sole non-developer of the crew. But I just have been really impressed with how open so many people are about that sort of discovery process, and just even like blogging about it, posting about it, and sharing. I tend to my sharing space, it ends up being Twitter more than anything. DJ, I'm gonna have to learn more from you about other platforms. I mean, I have posted things where I just have a question about something, or I don't understand something, and the amount of people that will respond back is really amazing. I think that some of it is we all have to learn new things all the time, and that's what is so great about new technologies, is that now I think that there's a lot of people that are talking about like creating content and side quests and all that. I mean, the one thing I do, as like I will say as a marketer, positioner, things, understand where you want to put your content later, because there are requirements, and I'm sorry to shift, but I'm shifting based on like things in the chat, that like Oculus Quest wants, they want content that people will return to, that it's like serialized content that you have to go back, you have to play again, that you need to play again. And so those people who want to create the amazingly beautiful art pieces of VR content, I love them and love them, but that is not going to be the top priority for Oculus. It will be a top priority for a film festival or from other kinds of places, but that's where you also have to think, where is it going to go? Like, almost you have like, what's the idea, and then like who's going to see it and why do they care? So just, that's the one morning, because I feel so bad for the people who are like, I have this amazing storyline, and maybe one day I'll get on the Quest and I'll make millions of dollars, and it'll just be like, no, like, not yet.
We need to think
Probably
through a
not.
release schedule then, the way that they do with film.
Oh no, I've been dying for them to have tentpoling, because that was me with a television background, and I did come at it as like, this felt like another TV platform, and I even said, I used to say a long time ago that it's the platform itself. It's almost like somebody said, we're going to create this thing called television, and it's going to only be made for like men, like or like 18 to 34, and that's it, and for nobody else, and that's the only demographic. And so I still am waiting for all the other demographics to really fill out, because there is potential for more than the 18 to 34-year-old men.
Well, we are kind of in that transition space between bleeding edge and cutting edge. Where like, as in bleeding edge is like, we're at the very, very edge where it's like, we're developing that new technology and figuring out how things work. And now we're kind of transitioning to more cutting edge technology where it's not quite mainstream yet.
Well, it's
But
that
it's
adoption
going
of
up.
technology. It's the innovators, early adopters, and then you have the crossing the chasm into late adopters.
Hmm.
And so there are a few, are a few platforms that are going this sort of more later adopter stage of things. But a later adopter is plug and play. It is make it easy for me. I'll try something new, but make it easy. And that's a Quest 2. Plug and you got it. And
Hmm.
so many other technologies haven't quite got to that point. More often than not, if you use emerging tech, you have to like combine a bunch of technologies to create something that's easier to use, but you have to go
Still a
through that
space
period of
for
combining.
nerds.
It's
You got to be a
but it's
little bit
not.
of a
I mean,
nerd to get into
I'm a
VR.
total nerd, and I love my nerds, and I support them and help them and want them to succeed. But I think that there's a place also for the artists and the creators, and there are the marketers that are desperately still needed. Although the executives don't always realize that, we're just trying to help. And so I want everybody to realize the shift is going to happen. My big thing is like, you don't want to be the person who's like, the internet's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's like early internet, when like back when people didn't really know what websites were or how to use them. We're just figuring them out, and you throw a website up, and like the $1 million homepage where like that one person had 1,000 pixel by 1,000 pixel, and you could buy as many pixels as you want for $1, and people thought that's how you would advertise on the internet. Like they thought this was the big thing of like, this is how we're going to advertise, and this is how all the websites are going to be from now on. And like, that's kind of how VR
Yeah,
is right now. Like,
absolutely. And that's where somebody said like, oh, when we launched um, the iPhone, they didn't realize that all the App Store was going to be a huge deal.
hmm
Or the internet, they didn't understand social media was coming. That's where we are. And so you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable and comfortable constantly learning. And I love being in that kind of place. It's boring otherwise.
We were talking earlier about there's a lot of people interested in VR that are also musically inclined. And I think
hmm
that's a part of it, is that if you're learning an instrument, it sounds really bad for a long time, but you have to be stubborn and see the potential fruit of your labor. And I think VR in the early stages has definitely had that. The Quest 2 is definitely more plug and play, but I gotta say it's not this device and I can give it to my great grandmother and she can put it on her head and be in it. And it's getting there.
AARP will disagree with you. I worked with them. They have some things that are supposed to be, because eye tracking makes it easier.
Yeah.
There's certain things that are happening where you don't have, I mean, think about DJ like 4 or 5 years ago when you're like, I kept going like, well, what button do I hit on the handset? And everybody was using the buttons
We
differently.
can do that now. It's just the raycast from the headset hits a target.
Yeah.
So much better than I was like, how do I? And they're like, okay, if you hit this button and then that button, then you get to walk. But then when you hit this button and that button, that means you go to the side. And I was like,
Sounds like a
are
really
you
bad UX
kidding
problem.
me?
yeah.
And so but now it's just like, oh, do this one thing. And it's like, yes, thank you. Finally.
We're getting there. We're
Yes.
getting there.
Okay,
It's
well, where do you
interesting.
go to figure out this kind of stuff though? Like, how do you learn it, I guess?
You just put yourself in the headset as many
Do it.
times as you can. I mean, some of that is that. It's just like you can like go to the easier ones, the ones that everybody is talking about. I mean, this is where people go to like Beat Saber, and they're like,
Mhm.
oh, because all Beat Sabers, it's not so much of this, it's this. And then go and watch some 360 videos and go and play with the next generation of augmented reality interaction, and then become opinionated. That's where I say it's like then you start going, what if I did this? What could I do better? And
Mhm.
that's where it's sort of, you have to like, at the same time you're like, I know nothing. You have to be like, what can I do? What if I
That's
tried this
I
at the
highly,
same
highly
time?
recommend playing as many games as you can. Like, especially if you're like going into the developer designer kind of world, like get as much experience in that kind of like your second point, DJ, was like, just experience as much as you can, like play as many games as you can, try to walk around in as many different like methods of locomotion as you can, and figure out which one you like the best, and like how, like, how does Lone Echo's locomotion system differ from Onward, and like which one do you like the best, and like which ones make you motion sick, and like being able to try all these things. And like I was on side quest the other day, and I was playing a dungeons, I forgot what the name of the game's called. It's a free game. It just came out on App Lab too, or on the actual Oculus store. But it's like a dungeon crawler type thing, but it had this nicest throwing knife in like action. Like I literally just stood and threw a knife against a wall for like a solid 15 minutes, just because I was like, holy cow, that feels so nice. Like,
and there's so much, there's value in good and bad.
Yeah.
That's a great mechanic too. So DJ, your list is amazing. It's perfect. I'm going to throw out a suggestion here.
Yep.
It goes experience, and then passion, and then community, and then creating. Because, I mean, what we've been talking about here, getting that experience and then building, like seeing what, if you're not passionate about it, if you've experienced like 8 games experiences and you're like, you know what, this is fun, but it's not really, like, I don't want to know what the mechanic is. I don't want to know how this was created. And maybe you're not passionate. That's fine.
No, but I didn't do that, right?
So you didn't do that, Sam.
Who's making it? Who's doing it?
Yep.
Who are these amazing people that are doing it? I want to meet them and help them. I mean, that's really where my passion came from. It's like, this is so cool. I could never do that in my entire life, although maybe I need to talk to, a few of you eventually. But I just who are they? And let me meet them. The other thing I have to say over and over again is there is more to this than zombie shooters. And I want more people to do stuff besides jump scares and zombie shooters.
Jump scares in VR are the worst.
So I've been dying for that. Like, I mean, I'm total cheeseball. Like, I want the romantic story. I want whatever it is to come to this kind of platform. I want other kinds of, don't they say there's like, I forget the number of stories that have always been told, it's like something like right. And so I think we've only hit like 1 or 2. So let's hit.
I don't know if jump scare was included in the group.
No. But like journey to fight things. Like I don't have that underlying passion to like shoot and kill things and hit them with swords. Like that isn't something that I'm sort of driven to put my headset back on again. Although Supernatural is a one thing, but you're not like killing things. You're just like hitting like drum-like things. But that's where I really, really, really want people who are creators who can tell other kinds of stories and serialized stories, if it's Oculus, to get into the space.
Well, so like
I know, Justin, you love your zombies.
Yeah.
I know that, and I apologize. We just met, and I'm already like harshing on the zombies, but that's where I sort of am like, what are the other
nostalgic at this point? But okay, so I approach things from a developer's frame of reference because both my parents are developers. I grew up a developer. I was the kid who coded websites instead of PowerPoints in 5th grade. So what are some other and like most of my community is developers, I like to think, because a lot of my content is coding and whatnot. But like, what are some other jobs you can have in like a metaverse, XR, VR, AR kind of setting? Like, so I know you can code things, but like, what else can you do?
I can fill in a couple of extra ones. So I think in the early days, which is what Glimpse was formed in 2016. So most of the folks that we were interviewing, they were all developer tech. That's really what the industry revolved around, and those were the people that were kind of building it. Now the industry, as well as even the organization, has grown in size, and now as the industry matures, you have all of these other job duties have to come into play that are not just the core developers. And that is the artists, that is the salespeople, that is the marketing people, that is the QA people, the support people. There's a whole ecosystem within Glimpse that are tied to creating enterprise solutions, but then you need the crossover people, right? So the construction professional that understands virtual reality technology can blend those two knowledge bases and then bring that combined knowledge to that industry. Same thing with healthcare, education, etc. So it's expanding exponentially right now. And I think now is the perfect time to go in. I think in scale wise on the VR side, back in 2016, we were putting a Vive into an organization. It would go into a conference room and they would cycle people through. Now, deployments are 50 headsets, 100 headsets, 200 headsets. Those are kind of common. And then you have the large organizations, the Accenture, 60,000 headsets, right? So you have this clear trend that adoption is increasing. And as the enterprise solutions, that the non-zombie applications increase, you're going to need to fill all of these roles to support that growth.
Yeah, like it's not just a, like gimmick type of like, it's storytelling or games anymore. It's starting to become more enterprise, which is where the money's at. And also where things get a little more interesting and complex and whatnot.
Well, that's where when people used to sort of laugh, and maybe they still do, when somebody says virtual reality and they're like, oh, that's whatever. You realize that that they don't know the applications, that they're assuming zombies. I'm sorry. I really
We
apologize.
can keep
No
using that.
worries.
It's fine.
Okay. But that they don't understand the large amount of enterprise applications. In my class last year covered, because I kept on not even being able to grapple with it. I mean, I contributed Charlie Fink's book, The Metaverse, and it was sort of, there were so many different sort of enterprise applications there, but I was like, what if I put them all together? And so I tried to cover as many as I could, and it was over 20 industries.
Yeah.
And I tried to have like guests from all of them. And really there is, I mean, that's what DJ was saying, like, no matter what industry you're in, and I say this very, like, I don't like to say every and all those sort of big extreme things, but no matter what industry you're in, there is an application for AR or VR.
100%.
And it might take you a little while to figure out what they are, but even if you just like Google like your industry and virtual reality or your industry and augmented reality, you will have something come up. The thing is, there are different kinds of roles beyond developers. For sure, I think that the business development people, the sales people, are always needed all the time. Because they're like, bring in money, please. Bring in customers for us.
We're kind of in the starving artist phase.
Yeah, no, they always, I mean, so that's, if nothing else, if you've proven that you've sold something somewhere, somebody will probably at least hire you on commission. They're like, go out and try to sell us and we'll give you something if you do. But I think that there is that sort of movement, hopefully, towards sort of the slight maturing of the industry. I know when I started that there were companies I come across that have 200 people in their company and not one person in anything besides like development or management. And that I was like, are you kidding me? Like, how can you grow a company that is that? And they're like, eh. So there's this feeling that we are going to grow no matter what. I just think that if you get those other kinds of people within the business, your growth will be faster.
Sam, when I met you like quite a few years back, I wonder if you even remember, honestly, but it was so many years ago.
I met thousands of people.
I know. I met you at a conference and you had probably 10 people in front of you at that point. So I doubt you remember me. Totally fine. No worries.
Okay. Don't worry about it. I love meeting everyone. all the time. I wish I had more time on my hands.
Yeah.
So I apologize.
No
I mean, you
worries
look
at all.
familiar, but I'm like,
I'm
I feel terrible.
But I had been in the architectural industry doing previs in XR for I think 3 years leading up to that, and it's wild. You get tons of clients who are like, "That's a gimmick. That's a gimmick." Like, I don't want to put on a headset. And then you realize how important it is to the architects and conveying their design, because otherwise it's just 2D plans, maybe a rendering from one point of view, and they're really not understanding the importance of some of the architectural features. And then it just gets BE'd or taken out. So if you guys are wondering why there's bad architecture going up, it's not so much because of the architects. They always get the flack, but it's usually from the cost cuts and everything.
Absolutely.
So VR was really helping us with some of those more advanced designs and being able to create, more like community driven spaces that usually get cut, or just more aesthetically pleasing designs that are impactful and helpful for cities.
Well, I've had the opportunity to work with a couple of different sort of people in that AEC building space and learn a lot about the potential applications. And I actually think it's changed in terms of people are using VR, but they're maybe not using it for the right things right now. They're sort of using it and like, oh, that looks interesting, as opposed to realizing that it could actually apply to their entire process. This is where, if you want, and I know that DJ does, like Alex Colum is sort of very big in the space and sharing how he learned stuff, where he learned stuff, how it can apply from the beginning. And so he's somebody that if you're like, how do you get involved and know or not know what you're doing? He's a great example of somebody that just has started learning, and now he's like official teacher of, I think it's Unreal, and gets invited things.
And all of the
so
work
wild.
he's doing in theater. Like if you're interested in live VR theater, check out
He's
Alex
great.
Collins' stuff. Amazing.
Yeah, no,
That kind of
he's really
leads
great.
me into my next question is like, okay, so where can I find a community for all this kind of thing? So like I'm learning, but I'm in my own little bubble.
DJ's answer is going to be Reddit.
Yes, DJ's Reddit, on Twitter and LinkedIn. I do both.
I definitely read it for like the information, but the social platforms that are out there, VRChat, Altspace, they have these meetups that are divided by topic. So you're checking off 2 boxes by meeting in VR and building your community in VR. So I would put that at the top.
Yeah, I said Twitter, LinkedIn. I think that there are so many different groups that are using like a Discord channel for very specific kinds of conversations. The people in this space, I said, like, if you literally go architecture and virtual reality or whatever it is that you're interested in, and metaverse or whatever, you'll be able to find some kind of group somewhere on social platforms.
There's one
or
down in the
whatever.
description if you want to join our Discord.
Yeah, I mean, right. And that's where people are. And I think that if you're open, and most people don't like to say they don't know, and I try to say it as often as possible. Maybe people think that I don't know anything. The amount of times I say I don't know about something, I'm like, I hope they understand I have a certain amount of knowledge. But if you're open to saying like, hey, I'd really like to learn more, I know about this, I want to know, people are just like, come in to learn what we're doing. I think we're still, as a community, and DJ will say like this, we're still pretty open to having everybody learn, because we haven't yet crossed that chasm entirely to where we're like grumpy, sort
competitive,
of mature.
There's enough room
businesses.
for everybody still.
Yeah, there are some companies and some people who are not so much like that, but I would say, considering I've met like thousands and thousands of people, maybe there's a few that I would say, not them, I'd start somewhere else.
The industry is still really collaborative and cooperative and super cool. So.
And like to help people learn, because honestly, there's still like the amount of developers that need to be hired now is ridiculous. The amount of jobs that are at Unity now like the internships and job, I mean, their job space, they pretty much have said, I've been told multiple times, can you get students to intern for us? Because we just need, like, they just need to hire so many people. And that, that's Unity. That's just one place out of many. I would like to see more marketing job openings out there so I can send more marketers, but that is my own personal perspective. But if you learn how to develop and you can develop pretty well, and you will, I would say you have a good shot at getting a job and meeting a whole lot of other people that are going through what
Yeah,
you're
I'd
going
say
through.
that's probably your best shot at getting a job. Like if you're trying to get a job via, ZipRecruiter or like, all of those kind of like places, like you're not gonna like I've tried it back when I was just doing normal software. Like it's like you'll send in hundreds of applications and not get any responses or anything.
Right.
If you
Well,
want to, if you're looking for a job, look for the community, get into the community, be helpful and like
Right.
learn from the community and meet
And
people.
and the amount of people that are super senior at different companies, maybe not the Metas of the world, but a lot of the other ones are at these meetups.
yeah.
That's the thing that is
Mhm.
And
amazing.
there's a huge need right now, and there is a question in the chat that has to do with Unity's hiring, and the question is basically, are they just looking for developers? And I think the answer there is probably not just developers. Like you're saying, if you
No.
pack a full company with just developers, you're probably, I mean,
It's
no offense
not.
to developers.
No, I mean, it's
I do
not.
in the world, but
No, I love developers. Are my favorite people. They are my favorite people forever. But like, I know Meta is hiring like crazy. Now I wish they would be out there talking to more of these meetups and stuff. But the amount of postings has gone from just sort of a trickle of postings to hundreds. Um, and I think that it only will go up from there. But the only way, I mean, this is one of those industries, and this was like the television industry was the same thing. The job that I got out of business school, the reason why I got it is because I met 9 people in that department. And then I showed up to meet another person, my 10th person, and they said, we have a job for you. And I was like, what? I thought I was just going to meet somebody. And they're like, no, we know this job. We are going to post, we're about to post this job, but like we really, and that's the thing that happens. It's not supposed to happen. Somebody legally would say, don't do that. But you have to have met the person who either is the hiring manager or knows the hiring manager at that company. And the only way you're going to do that is by like going out there and finding those people at those companies that you want to work for.
Find the group.
there was also an interesting question too relating to nonprofits, and someone in the chat had posted about Boston Children's Hospital, and actually Jeffrey Jacobson, who leads that team, is one of the people who got me into VR back in the day. It's really interesting to see the applications that they're working on when it comes to communication of really heavy topics and really complex information. I think that's something that is consistent across all jobs in VR and all, I guess, types of jobs across VR. Is how do you get that communication of something that is more complex and trying to deliver that information? So whether or not you're a developer, you're seeing a lot more like user interface, user experience designers, which is great. Something's progressing if you've got user experience people coming in. But yeah, it's communication and the ability to easily communicate very complex information and ideas and have that be received well for a majority of people.
That made me think of I have worked just a little bit with Garage Stories, and they put together a sort of not a hackathon, but sort of a community where they created some experiences, one for Boston Children's Hospital and combined with a hospital in Europe. And so I would say once you have learned how to develop, that if you get involved with some kind of hackathon, and have that also builds your community, right? And it also sort of leads to, like, let's say you are working in some kind of hackathon project for Boston Children's Hospital. If you later happen to see that there is a job posting for Boston Children's Hospital, you have a very wonderful sort of cover letter saying that, how did you get interested? Well, I worked in the hackathon and we developed this, and it becomes a whole conversation topic that somebody else who didn't get involved in that project couldn't have. And so you're at an advantage in that respect.
So a couple questions there. So first one, why do we think NFTs are required in order to transfer items from one world to another? My belief is that the NFT is going to be the validation that if you have multiple worlds that are not connected to each other, their platforms aren't going to be compatible. So the NFT is the bridge that brings that one asset from one to the other and verifies ownership. And then the other question, the 3D artist here looking to how to focus their content. I think it would be on the retail side of things. So look at the items right now that are being advertised in 3D. So the sneakers now with try-ons and watches and clothes and appliances. I think that would be kind of a good start on our side. The marketing side of Glimpse is definitely very hot these days. And that comes in the form of recreating products, as well as the lenses and filters that are all over the place.
And I would add one little twist to what DJ is saying, because I will say that the 3D objects within retail is definitely 100% like that. People are trying to figure it out. But I would also ask, because I like pushing people to innovate, what's the next thing? Like, if you see all the stuff that is going on, what isn't happening? Okay, sneakers, people are starting to get like, what do you do after sneakers? Like, try to figure that out for yourself, and sort of, you can have a bit of an advantage if you're thinking of what's next, because I mean, that's basically what the entire industry is always thinking of, is what happens next. So you can get your job doing one and then continue to expand into the next thing.
Yeah, I think with the 3D artistry, it's very much needed. I mean, I know a lot of content that's being developed right now, and everybody's next step is, hey, can we actually get some good models here and make this thing look good? And for the artist side of things, it's really understanding the pipeline between what your current platform is and getting it into something like Unity or Unreal. And I only say Unity and Unreal as those game engines because they are kind of the industry focused. There are plenty of other game engines you can work with, but if you're looking to build your career, it's going to be in Unity. If you are doing, application development, web VR based items, and then if you're in Unreal, that's more of like a very industry specific, maybe more in the entertainment business side. And it's going to take some actual understanding of that industry in particular, and then also an understanding of like the concepts of VR. So if you're getting started, Unity and the Unity pipelines, that's going to be a good focus for you, and just knowing what goes into it to transfer your 3D work. And then rapid prototyping. I mean, I'll always
We actually
come back to that.
have a course for that.
We do have a course for that.
Well,
Just for you.
Yeah, and the other thing is that there are like Andrew Deutsch. Sorry, we're live. Andrew Deutsch says, "My do not disturb already finished." That Andrew Joyce has this great meetup where he actually showcases a lot of people's work that they are putting on. Like, he just follows these amazing designers and invites them to come and just talk about what they're doing. He hasn't done a meetup in a little while, but he puts together a great one where it's just he seems sort of like fascinated by the little pieces of what's possible, of like, you take volumetric capture and then what do you do with that? You take you know, this kind of technology and how can you play with it. It's a lot about the playing there. And the people that go to his meetup, it might be, this is the other thing, is that there are places in the space for like the DJ, which has like the hundreds of people showing up, and then like Andrews has like 20, but each and every person in there is like deeply invested and involved. So don't look at the number, and like look at the like what is possible, and like what do you want to do. And I just started going to every one of the meetups that I could, and now what's actually sort of fun is you can go to meetups. I've gone to a meetup that was based in Italy. I don't know if you've gone to that one yet, TJ.
Not that one, but I've been to a bunch of them all over. It's
all over the
cool.
world, and there are people all over the world. And so you don't even have to say, oh gosh, I only am going to meet people that are in New York or whatever city. You now have the opportunity to meet people from everywhere, which is pretty amazing. Like you put that list of all the terrible COVID things, and it keeps going really long, and like you have your short list of the good thing, and that is on the list. Of the short list of the good things of just this sort of worldwide connection about the space.
So I can comment about the Elon Musk question, and I will self-profess or say I'm a huge fan of space travel. Like, I'm a total dork, and everything he has done up until he said that VR was trash, I'm a big fan of. But
he's
it was
using VR for his space station. Right?
Yeah, it was actually.
If you read it, it continued on, and he kept on saying good things.
Yeah, it was a bad soundbite that went out. And I think he was specifically talking about, where the technology is today. And he's obviously vested in Neuralink, which is probably where the future is going to go.
Super advanced VR.
That's right. So,
implants.
You could take that context of horses and carriages are stupid. I'm just going to go right to my Tesla vehicle. And maybe that's where VR is now compared to what it will be down the road.
That's where Elon's headspace is most of the time. He's like, we'll skip all these steps and go right to here.
I wanted to put
That's right.
Any press is good press. Like, I'm not in VR. I deal with a lot of people who are in VR, but it was like, any press is good press. He's talking about it.
And I guess the challenge there too is which metaverse is he referring to? It's in our comments as well, but the metaverse of Facebook, Meta, versus the metaverse as the concept and whole, which is what we've been talking about, everything kind of coming together, the new version of the internet, apparently not the internet that somebody's grandfather had fought for in the chat, but maybe a different kind of internet.
Well, some of this really, like, I talked to a friend of mine who runs a quantum computing company, and he was like, you're in AR and VR, and I was like, oh, and I was like, and he goes, how many AR VR companies do you think are really good? And this was like 2 years ago, and I was like, 10. Like, and he was like, fist bump. Like, there are many more than 10 now, but it was the idea that there are going to be companies in the space that are terrible, and there are going to be some that are amazing, and it's like that bell curve. And so it's like the person who says, I've tried the 360 video of the roller coaster, and I am never going to do VR again. And then you go, well, do you have any idea, like, the breadth of creativity that you're missing? And maybe you try some and it was like, oh God, that was horrible. But that's the same if you watch YouTube videos that you're probably like, really? This exists? How did this exist?
Yeah, it's the same thing as a television.
Versus amazing content, which I'm sure yours is. I'll win you back. I'll win you back after those like zombie comments.
That's right. It's like, do you like TV? No, I like this movie and I don't like this movie, right? And that's how it should be treated. Cool.
Well, let's go over your I really liked DJ's points. So let's go over those one more time for people who are new and missed those.
I'll recap it one more time.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will reorder it based on Kachina's recommendation. I will say though that I usually start with passion because when I'm interviewing somebody, that's what I go for first. So, what are you passionate about? To start experiencing as much as you can within the medium, and definitely check out side quests because there's oodles of free content, and there's value in the good things that you find, but there is also huge value in the bad things that you find that are out there. So it's just harder to find the good things, but they are out there if you look hard. Three, join the community, and there's a ton of different events, platforms, LinkedIn, Meetup, Altspace, Reddit, YouTube. Just surf, right? Surf and digest. And then point number four, start creating. Roll up your sleeves and whatever it is, even if it's just going and getting a 360 video. If your background's in editing, get a 360 camera and start editing. If you want to mess around with development, develop. If you want to do 3D artistry, do 3D artistry. Blender is open source, huge push to that. Actually, I would recommend also trying to draw in 3D, so like Gravity Sketch or Tilt Brush. It's really, really awesome. So those are my four bullet points.
And if you're interested in actually getting into these as like, it's your New Year's resolution and we're thinking, okay, well, I'm kind of bored at my old job, or like this XR metaverse thing looks super interesting and I'm like, interested in maybe getting into it. We actually walk you through all of these with XR Terra. And so if there is a link down in the description, and we run courses, and we're starting up courses in January for if you're more of a designer and want to learn how to design games, make them look pretty, do level design, all of that kind of thing. And we also have courses for programmers. So if you're into coding or new to coding and want to get into it, learn how to do it, we do that as well. So there's a link down in the description if you're interested in changing your career, or at least learning about what the next steps would be. And then we offer a pretty big discount if you mention my name, or that you saw this not podcast, this live stream. If you're interested in changing a career, then there is a link down in the description, or you could just chat with us or join the Discord, join a community, kind of get a feel for things and whatnot.
Yeah, and a lot of designers ask about the prerequisites. Developers not as often, because developers kind of know what their background is and know what they're going for. But for the designers, you don't have to be a 3D modeler. You could be a user experience, user interface person. You could have worked in a web background, a mobile background. All of that is applicable to moving into an XR field, whether that's AR or VR. And those courses are meant for designers and developers. The teams get to work together. It's really great. You get a taste of both worlds. And we have courses for VR and AR. And then a few more that are probably coming up in 2022, but I'm not allowed to talk about those yet.
Can I talk about the developer, what we're building? Is that allowed?
Ooh, if you want to, yeah.
If you go through the developer course, well, also the designer course, we kind of pick apart different things, but we make a full multiplayer game. So like a full VR multiplayer, not quite RPG, but like has a lot of those elements in it. Type game, and so like you get the whole thing, and like that's part of your portfolio. We walk you through it over the weeks and show you how to do things, and at the end you have this big multiplayer game that you can show off to employers and whatnot.
And you get to develop your own projects too.
Yeah, and there's other projects to add to your portfolio. It's not just one. So super fun. Anyway, I appreciate all of you guys for coming out and chatting. This was super fun, and I think we might end up doing this more often, because I really enjoyed this kind of conversation, doing it on different kind of topics and whatnot. So I appreciate you guys.
To a new year.
Exactly. And chat, thank you guys for hanging out with us, and we had a lot of people on here actually. So thanks for showing up. Really appreciate all of you guys being in here, and we'll let you know when we do this again. So Have a good rest of your week and a happy new year.
Happy New Year. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks so much.